As I mentioned in my previous video, I decided to wait to jump back into Grounded 2 until the winter update when there's a bigger chunk of content. So I myself have not tried the Hairy and Scary update. However, after skimming through the patch notes and watching a friend stream it and reading some of the discourse online, I thought it would be worthwhile to make this really short feedback video, which is going to be aimed towards the developers. So this video is more for the developers than for you, but hopefully you can appreciate it. So I want to talk about only the combat balancing. I'm not going to talk about anything else in the patch notes. It's only going to be the combat balancing because I think history is repeating itself here, and hopefully it can be addressed now so that the trajectory of the game can be a little bit different than what might happen if it doesn't change. So let's talk about the combat balancing. So you can see here, this is a pass on combat stats as we prepare for Tier 3 content. So the winter update is going to add the Tier 3 Omni tool, which will allow for the harvesting of Tier 3 resources. There's already Tier 3 gear in the game, but I guess there'll be more in that update. Maybe there'll be Tier 4. This also reins in some overpowered gear mutations for the actual boss fight, so people were trivializing the boss fight using stun, so that seems to be changed. I'm not going to read through all this. I just want to kind of point out the things that I think are kind of like what I'm most interested in here. So global tweaks: baseline crit hit multiplier reduced, baseline stun damage reduced, baseline parry stun reduced, rogue armor critical hit chance is slightly reduced. You're going to notice that in the patch notes, there's going to be a lot of mention about rogues. The rogue was super nerfed, and I don't want to say rightfully so, as I think there was probably a different way this could have been done, which I'll talk about at the end, but let's just keep going. Dual wield weapons, dual wield finale damage reduced. That's, again, rogues. Critical hit chance for the following weapons adjusted: daggers, sickles, claw shredders. You'll notice that only the needle here is a non-rogue weapon, specifically. These are all rogue, the other ones are all rogue weapons. Also, we don't know, it doesn't say how much it was reduced by. It could have been reduced by 5%, 10%, 30%, 50%. We'll only know after the data's been data mined and the spreadsheet's been updated. And it would actually, honestly, for me personally, I'd like to just see the numbers. One of the games that I always appreciated the patch notes for was Bloons TD6, because they would literally say, this tower, you'll be like, this tower upgrade path was changed from a 2% piercing to 1.5% piercing. Like, they would literally be so specific that you would have, there was nothing that should have not been known what was in there. So I'd like to see that, and I don't expect it because they've never really done that, but it would be something that I think some of us would at least appreciate. First weapon attacks deal less stun. Bow damage has been reversed from the PTB. Tier 1 and Tier 2 arrows base damage both has been increased. Apparently by not enough, which I'll talk about in just a second. Double for charge attacks. Pinch Whacker, nerfed, stun nerfed, and then the AoE damage reduced. So you notice here there's a lot of nerfs to the rogues, and there's a lot of nerfs to stun. The stun is specifically because you could literally stun lock Axel, apparently, and that's kind of that's been addressed here. Trinkets I'm not so much worried about. Armor. Crippling strike set bonus immobilizes the target for a short duration instead of stun. So again, stun nerf. Ambush attack only works on angry creatures like mutation. Okay. Mutations here. This is the big one that honestly I was expecting to see a hotfix for this, like literally a week after the game, and it never came. And reading this doesn't make me think that it's been changed the way that I thought it was going to be. For ambush mutation, dagger critical hit damage multiplier has been reduced. Ambush only works on angry creatures. I'm not sure why. That's like whatever. That's just going to mean more weapon durability loss when killing like caterpillars and stuff. Ambush unlock progression only counts on angry creatures. That makes sense. Assassin dash strike critical hit chance reduced. Critical hit damage with daggers and sickles has been reduced. So you can see nerfs across the board here for rogue. Buff here for the smasher. Sharpshooter nerfed. Little fist nerfed. Reliable friend time been adjusted. It's probably been slowed down. If it doesn't say increase, I'm going to assume it's been slowed down. This one's a little bit disconcerting. Not the topic of this video, like specifically, but like turret damage against orc creatures has been reduced. I like the base raids in the game because I thought the turrets were great, but they've been reduced now, so it'll be interesting to see how much they've been. And then there's some stuff down here. Wolf spiders resistance to stabbing has been increased, health increased, praying mantis health increased. So kind of buffing the stronger enemies in the game. So as you can see here, lots and lots of nerfs, and that's what people aren't happy about. Now, when I say people aren't happy about it, there is an interesting dichotomy here because I skimmed through the Grounded Discord Didn't find a lot of negative feedback or negative sentiment about the current update. However, when I went to Steam and looked at the comments of the patch notes and then another post that was put out about the update being live, you'll see here that there's like 20 plus, I think it's 20, a little over 20 comments that I cherry picked out of the around maybe like 80 or 100 comments that are specifically talking about the nerfs and not being happy about them. And I'm not going to read all these, but the first one up here, it just like struck a chord with me. When I read it, I was like, I'm going to make this video. Y'all took a page from Nerf Divers, referring to Helldivers 2 with this one. Just remember that they lost 80% of their player base with endless nerfing, had an average of 500K a day. Now they only get 40. That's on Steam. The numbers were like double that if you included PlayStation. They also did fall by like the 80% overall. But just get nerfs all around. You get a nerf, everybody gets a nerf. Not a fan of all the nerfs. Why are we nerfing things non-competitive? Nerfing fun weapons is horrible, and we start with nerfs. Oh yeah, nerfs. Like literally, I'm not going to read all these. Like I said, you can go find them for yourself on the Steam community page for it. But people are just not happy with the nerfs, and I kind of agree with it because this is history repeating itself. The same thing happened in Grounded 1. The Mint Mallet was like the OP weapon at the beginning of the game in early access. Actually, like halfway through early access, as far as I can remember. It was something like that. It was like a good chunk into early access. It was like the best weapon. There was no other weapon to use. And instead of making other weapons better, they nerfed it, changed the name also to the Mint Mace, and then made it where you got it way later on where it was far less useful. Still useful, but far less useful than it was. They did the same thing with the Antlion Greatsword. When the Antlion Greatsword came out, when the sandbox was updated, it was the best weapon in the game. They nerfed it so hard. Like, I want to say it was like a 50% nerf because it went from like killing wolf spiders in 3 to 4 hits to taking like 7 if you had it spicy. The Tick Sword was added, I think at 1.0. It had lifesteal. You could literally face tank everything. They nerfed it so hard that it became useless because there were just other weapons that just did more damage and the lifesteal wasn't that great. As mentioned in this first comment up here, Helldivers 2 had a bunch of nerf patches. Drove a lot of people away from the game because they weren't having fun, and it's a PvE game. Diablo 4 is a game that I personally played a good chunk of time with when it released when it released, whenever it was, like a year and a half, 2 years, whenever it was. The first big update for that, nerfs. And it was like, it doesn't feel good as a player because I know the developers, they've always said they don't want to know, like, don't tell us like percentages or numbers. They don't want to manage the game on spreadsheets. I get that. As a player, it doesn't feel good when I feel powerful and then I don't feel powerful anymore. And you can just see that right here with all these comments. So how can this be addressed differently instead of just nerfing everything? I think there's a really simple solution for this. With combat balancing, you have options of nerfing strong stuff, buffing weak stuff, or doing both. In the case of Grounded 2, this first update here, they've just nerfed everything. They haven't even done either one of these because very few things you saw got buffed. It was a ton of nerfs. Now, I'm not quite sure why they didn't just straight up nerf Ambush. Ambush is the best mutation in the game. It's used in literally every build. If you know how to play, if you have any idea what's going on, you're going to use it in every build because it benefits whether you're using melee, range. If you just carry a bow with you or a staff with you and you get a sneak attack on an enemy, you're going to chunk their health like significantly, making combat super easy. Literally deleting Ambush, the mutation from the game, would have balanced the combat tremendously. Nerfing Ambush specifically, instead of it having a tier 3 like a 330% critical hit damage multiplier, whatever it was, nerfing that would have balanced combat. The choice they decided to make was nerf everything and not buff the weak stuff, which is going to end up resulting in a less fun experience because you've now, like I said, you're taking the power fantasy away from people in a PvE game. This isn't a competitive game. We're not out there trying to fight each other on a leaderboard or for rank and stuff like that. It's a PvE game. We should feel more powerful as we go on. Now, I understand that the game's in early access. I understand there's a lot more to come. And they said that they're preparing for Tier 3. So my question is, why not wait till Tier 3 comes out to make any of these changes? My other question is, why is everything being nerfed? Like, the friend I was watching stream the game plays bow primarily, and literally watching him play for a little bit of time, the bows were taking so much longer to kill everything. I came back to a stream like towards the end of it, and he had been playing with the bow for about 6-7 hours, and he said it felt way weaker than it was before. So bows have been nerfed, rogue's been nerfed, everything feels like it's been nerfed, and it's just gonna, like I said, it's gonna result in the game being less fun for people. So I hope they can think about this going forward. Instead of nerfing everything, just buff things to try to level the playing field. Make the weaker stuff stronger, slightly reduce the strongest stuff, but don't just say we're just gonna nerf everything when there's really not a problem with everything. The game was only easy because of ambush. Like literally, if you did not use ambush, the game was not going to be super easy. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I might talk about this a little bit on my live stream tonight if you're interested in checking that out while I do some other stuff. But like I said, I'll be hopping back into Grounded 2 most likely when the winter update comes out and seeing what is going on with that, because it's going to have a lot more content. Let me know if you're enjoying the current update, if you agree or disagree with these nerfs here, if you feel like they're impacting the game. If you found the video interesting, make sure to hit the like button. Consider subscribing for more content just like this. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.